Welcome. Today we're diving into a document that makes a pretty bold claim that U.S. foreign policy isn't at all what it seems on the surface. We're going to deconstruct its argument piece by piece to really understand the world it's trying to describe.
So the document we're looking at today kicks things off with one big, provocative question that's really at the heart of its entire argument. When you look at America's global strategy, who is really running the show? This question is basically the key to unlocking everything that follows.
Now, just so we're all on the same page, our goal here is pretty simple. We're just going to unpack the claims made in this document, and we're going to do it neutrally. We're not here to endorse them or to debunk them, but simply to lay out the argument exactly as it's presented.
All right, so the argument gets started by identifying what it calls the core problem. It paints this picture of the United States, and really the whole world, as being trapped in this cycle of endless conflict.
The entire case is built on this one single observation, that ever since the end of World War II, the United States has been in an almost constant state of military engagement somewhere in the world, and the source insists this pattern is absolutely not an accident.
To back this up, the document points to a mix of different conflicts, some current and some it predicts for the future. It talks about U.S. support for Israel, potential moves in Venezuela and Cuba, and then it makes some much more startling claims, alleging that there are future plans involving both Canada and even Greenland.
So, if continuous conflict is the problem, what does the document say is the cause? This brings us right to its central thesis, where it points the finger at a very specific entity that it holds responsible.
And here's where we hit a really crucial point in the argument. The source claims that the person we all see as being in charge, the President of the United States, isn't actually the one making the big decisions. The specific word it uses to describe the president's role is puppet.
Well, that naturally leads to the next logical question, doesn't it? A question the document is all too ready to answer. If the president isn't really in control, then who is pulling the strings?
The document offers a two-word answer for who's really in charge, a term it actually made up itself: US power. It defines this as a kind of hidden coalition of different groups that it alleges is really the one running the US government.
So what is this US power? Well, the document breaks it down. It's not one single thing, but this coalition of powerful interests. You've got the arms industry, influential think tanks, major financial institutions, lobbyists, intelligence agencies, and what it calls the deep state. The central claim is that all these different groups work together because their interests are aligned to steer national policy in the direction they want.
The document doesn't just name this group and leave it there. It goes on to present what it sees as a clear pattern of global intervention, which it claims is direct evidence of U.S. power at work.
You know, the document's explanation for all of this is brutally direct. For every single conflict, past, present, and even the ones it predicts, it offers the same repetitive and forceful reason. It happened because U.S. power wants it. From the war in Ukraine to conflicts in the Middle East, the source puts the responsibility squarely on the shoulders of this one single entity. To illustrate just how deep this alleged control goes, the document makes a really fascinating claim about public perception. It suggests that even things that seem totally chaotic on the surface, like a former president's tweets, are not random at all. Instead, it argues they're part of a calculated misdirection strategy dictated by U.S. power to distract everyone from its real moves. So from all these alleged past actions, the document then shifts its focus to the future. It starts making some pretty grim predictions about the consequences of these hidden plans, with a specific focus on Europe.
At the heart of this prediction is the war in Ukraine. The source alleges that U.S. power has been deliberately maneuvering the European Union into a position where it has to take on the primary burden of the conflict.
And it lays out this bleak five-step strategy it predicts for Europe's future. Step 1, the U.S. provokes the conflict. Step 2, it transfers the war over to the EU. Step 3, the U.S. withdraws from the fighting. And the predicted result of all this? That Europe and Russia effectively destroy each other, which allows the U.S. to then step in and control whatever's left.
To wrap up its entire worldview, the document turns to an outside voice. It uses a quote that it believes perfectly describes this grand theory of manipulation, what it calls a brilliant act of hypnosis.
For this final, powerful summary, the source looks to the late playwright Harold Pinter, citing a line from his 2005 Nobel Prize lecture that it believes just perfectly captures its entire argument. And this is the quote it chooses to end on. Pinter's words describe a clinical manipulation of power that pretends to be a force for good, calling it a brilliant, highly successful act of hypnosis. For the author of our source document, this is the ultimate description of how U.S. power works.
And so, we're left with the central question that this document really poses. If such a master of manipulation were truly at work behind the scenes, what would its actual role and its ultimate impact be on the world stage?